Bing bong bong bing bing bing.
Just what I needed now. A wino and a rhino.
Well, Pop, you gonna help me with this garden now?
Son, I did my part. I got us a scarecrow. This is guaranteed to scare away slugs and snails and birds.
Just remember that the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Hallelujah!
And you remember when you looked in the mirror tonight, the Lord gave you that faith and you stuck with it. Let me tell you something. Every time I see you, it makes me wish that birth control was retroactive. Why don't you start helping us out in the kitchen?
All right.
You can start by sticking your face in the freezer and making us some ugly sickles.
I don't like being alone in the house with a married man.
Listen, if we were alone on a raft in the middle of the ocean, I'd rather kiss an octopus in the mouth.
Today is my lucky day.
Why? Because you looked in the mirror and it didn't break? What do you want?
I'm the winner of your lucky number contest, and I want my money.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the money I got coming on this ticket, turkey.
You call me a turkey again, I'll base you with a couple of these. Why'd you go someplace else? Why'd you go ugly up somebody else's house?
Who you calling ugly, sucker?
You. I could throw some tracing paper over your head and draw me a moose face.
Who you calling a criminal? I'm no criminal.
Not now. But if you're gonna take a physical, you're gonna have to take your clothes off. And if you take your clothes off, that's criminal. Wait a minute. See, you take your clothes off, that would be first-degree ugliness with malice of forethought and attempt to cause blindness. Hey, what are you doing here?
What do you mean, what am I doing here?
Well, wolf woman don't usually come out until it's a full moon. Goodbye, dear.
Oh, you call me dear?
Why should I call you dear? You look like Bambi's father.
The reformations require that the Federal Reserve be absorbed by the U.S. Treasury Department, and the bank's fraudulent activities must be stopped and payment must be made for past harm. In 1998, the military generals who originally participated in the farmer claims process realized that the U.S. Supreme Court justices had no intentions of implementing the accords, so they decided the only way to implement the reformations was through a law passed by Congress. In 1999, a 75-page document known as the National Economic Security and Reformation Act was submitted to Congress, where it sat with little action for almost a year. Late one evening, on March 9, 2000, a written quorum call was hand-delivered by Delta Force and Navy SEALs to 15 members of the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House, who were sponsors and co-sponsors of NESARA. They were immediately escorted by the Delta Force and Navy SEALs to the respective voting chambers where they passed the National Economic Security and Reformation Act. These 15 members of Congress were the only people lawfully allowed to hold office in accordance with the original 13th Amendment. Remember, British soldiers destroyed copies of the Titles of Nobility Amendment in the War of 1812 because it prevented anyone who had ties to the Crown of England from holding public office. NESARA is the most groundbreaking reformation to sweep not only this country, but our planet in its entire history. The act does away with the Federal Reserve Bank, the IRS, the shadow government, and much, much more. NESARA implements the following changes. Zeroes out all credit card, mortgage, and other bank debt due to illegal banking and government activities. This is the Federal Reserve's worst nightmare, a jubilee or a forgiveness of debt. Abolishes the income tax, abolishes the IRS. Employees of the IRS will be transferred into the U.S. Treasury National Sales Tax Area. Creates a 14% flat rate non-essential new items only sales tax revenue for the government. In other words, food and medicine will not be taxed, nor will used items such as old homes. Increases benefits to senior citizens. Returns constitutional law to all courts and legal matters. Reinstates the original Title of Nobility Amendment. Hundreds of thousands of Americans under the control of foreign powers will lose their citizenship, be deported to other countries, and barred from re-entry for the remainder of their life. And millions of people will soon discover their college degrees are now worthless paper. Establishes new presidential and congressional elections within 120 days after NESARA's announcement. The interim government will cancel all national emergencies and return us back to constitutional law. Monitors elections and prevents illegal election activities of special interest groups. Creates a new U.S. Treasury rainbow currency backed by gold, silver, and platinum precious metals, ending the bankruptcy of the United States, initiated by Franklin Roosevelt in 1933. Forbids the sale of American birth certificate records as chattel property bonds by the U.S. Department of Transportation. Initiates new U.S. Treasury bank system in alignment with constitutional law. Eliminates the Federal Reserve System. During the transition period, the Federal Reserve will be allowed to operate side by side of the U.S. Treasury for 1 year in order to remove all Federal Reserve notes from the money supply. Restores financial privacy. Retrains all judges and attorneys in constitutional law. Ceases all aggressive U.S. government military actions worldwide. Establishes peace throughout the world. Releases enormous sums of money for humanitarian purposes. Enables the release of over 6,000 patents of suppressed technologies that are being withheld from the public under the guise of national security, including free energy devices, anti-gravity, and sonic healing machines.
I want the American people to know today that I am still committed to working with people of good faith and goodwill of both parties to do what's best for our country.
Because President Clinton's clone had no interest in signing NESARA into law, on October 10, 2000, under orders from U.S. military generals, the elite Naval SEALs and Delta Force stormed the White House and under gunpoint forced Bill Clinton to sign NESARA into law. During this time, Secret Service and White House security personnel were ordered to stand down, disarmed, and allowed to witness this event under a gag order. From its very inception, Bush Sr., the corporate government, major bank houses in the Carlyle Group have opposed NESARA. To maintain secrecy, the case details and the docket number were sealed and revised within the official congressional registry to reflect a commemorative coin, and then again, it was revised even more recently. This is why there are no public congressional records, and why a search for this law would not yield the correct details until after the reformations are made public. You probably never heard of this law due to an extremely strict gag order placed upon politicians, media personnel, and bank officers. Even though Alex Jones or Ron Paul will not tell you about it, the law is still valid.